So I'm really excited to be here. My name is Kimberly Gilgeours, and I wanted to talk about women and finance and our overall wealth. I want to go through a couple of things that you may or may not have heard, you may not be aware of, but I want to give you the opportunity to see what does that mean when we say women and wealth, right? Most people think it's synonymous, right? We are generating wealth. And the reality is, as women working and building our businesses or working for someone else, we are building wealth. The question is, isn't enough. And so today, what I'm going to go over is how do we close the financial gap that women are facing, whether they realize it or not. And so I want to start with just sharing for you a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Kimberly Gilgeours. I am a single mom of twins. I have a boy and a girl. They are now 27, soon to be 28. My daughter is going to school to be a chef. My son is in the military part-time. And I got into this industry not because I loved it. In fact, I had no intention on being in finance. My goal was actually to be in media. I wanted to have a talk show ever since I was little. My mother used to tell me that all I did was talk in my sleep. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have a talk show and it'll be a lot of fun. But I was raised by a single mom who only had a high school degree. And one of the things she asked me to do was to learn about how money works so I could help her. So I went to college, I graduated, the first in my family to do so. And I learned a lot, but I graduated not only with a degree, I graduated with student loan debt and credit card debt. Now, I'm sure some of you can relate to that. And I realized that I was not achieving the goals that my mother had set for me. She asked me one simple thing: learn how money works so I could teach her. So I decided that what I would do is I would go where money is earned, Wall Street. Now, I live in New York, been here my entire life, and I knew that, or I understood that money is on Wall Street. So I got my first job at a company called E.F. Hutton, and it was great. It was during a time when women didn't really have a lot of rights. I think things were coming around, but just to give you an idea, I could not go to work in pants. I had to wear a dress or a skirt. I could never understand that. I think I figured it out now. But during my time there, I was mentored by some of the traders, and they started explaining different things to me. And then the company merged with Shearson and Lehman, and I worked with them for a little while. I worked with Shearson, Lehman, and Hutton. Then I went on to work at Union Bank of Switzerland, a foreign bank. I wanted to see how they do things, and they do things differently. And then I went on to Bank of New York Mellon. And so in all of this time, I finally had an opportunity to learn, how does money work? I could answer my mother. I could give her the answer to her question. The problem was she couldn't use any of what I knew. And that was simply because she didn't make enough money to work with a financial advisor. So you see, in the financial industry, there's companies that are very much focused on those individuals who we would say are like in the top 10%. They have a lot of money, and advisors want to work with them to help them make even more money. Then you have the people that don't have money, and well, the government will take care of them. We have programs for that. But what happens to everybody in the middle? You hear people say middle America or upper middle market. Well, that's where my mother was, and that's the market that I serve. And so after 20 years being on Wall Street at different firms, I decided I was going to take everything that I learned and I was going to be able to bring that to everyday people in a way that they could really relate to. I wanted to educate people about how money works so that they could do something with meeting their goals. I believe that an educated consumer is always your best customer. So I want to talk about what that looks like for you as we're celebrating Women's Month. I wanted this to be solely about women and what is the impact that wealth has on us. So let's look at what is the financial landscape right now for women today. When it comes to wealth, we have to be very, very aware that we actually outlive the men. Now, there's lots of reasons why, right? Men don't really like going to the doctor. In fact, if it wasn't for the wife or the sister or the mother saying, hey, you need to go get that checked out, they probably wouldn't go. So we outlive the men. We live anywhere from 6 to 8 years longer than they do. But when it comes to how much money we will have in retirement, we will be missing 30% of what we should have for our overall wealth. So now you might ask yourself, well, why is that? Well, it's what I just shared, and that is we are the caregivers. We're phenomenal, right? Because we take care of everyone. We take care of the kids, we take care of our husbands, we help them with whatever they need. We try to take care of ourselves as well. So, but in doing all that, we spend more time out of the market than we do in. We're out for childbirth. We're out for being sick or taking care of others, right? Or, there's something called the sandwich generation. So, as our parents are aging, we tend to be the women that will take off from work to take care of their parents who are aging and the kids who are young. So that can have an immediate impact on your overall wealth. And 55% of the women find that they really don't have a strong knowledge about investing. Look, we are amazing at taking the money that we have and getting it to work for us, doing what we have to do, managing the household. But when it comes to investing and understanding what we should be doing, not only for now, but for later, 55% of us feel like we don't really understand how that works. And I'm determined to change that. Additionally, a large number of us have realized that, look, we can work for someone else. We can go out and build someone else's dreams. Or how about we build our own? And we have women with businesses that have exceeded over not million, but $1 trillion in revenue on an annual basis. And even with all of that, with all of the money that is being generated from those businesses, women still find themselves at a point where they're not quite sure what they should do to take it to the next level, to get that money to work for them. And oftentimes, especially those that are in businesses that they've recently started, they are not putting money away for their own retirement. So why does any of this matter? I mean, we've been like this for how long? Quite some time. Why do we care? Well, we care because there were so many missed opportunities. When I sit with individuals, I talk about how many people missed the mark when Zuckerberg was talking to people about his new technological platform, and people thought he was crazy. Or when Steve Jobs was in the garage and they were tinkering with and figuring out how to create what we now know as being Apple. Because of people's lack of vision or lack of knowledge, those people that had the opportunity to be in at the ground level, they missed opportunities. Well, that happens in our finances as well. There's opportunities that exist financially with investing that oftentimes we miss simply because we don't understand how things work. Also, it matters because when you are financially independent, you have more security and you have more options. I think about my mom, and my mom, as I shared with you, single mom, raising me by herself. I'm an only child, by the way. And as she was raising me, she didn't have financial independence. She was literally tethered to her job. Without the job, we didn't eat, we didn't have a place to live. So, no financial independence. She didn't have security. There was no peace of mind. And she had no options either. It wasn't like she could say, oh, well, let's do this instead, because it was like living hand to mouth. You make the money, you pay for what you need to do, and you just keep doing it over and over. But the other reason why this is so important is that women are more likely to take breaks, as I said earlier, when you are in your career for the things we talked about, taking care of the family, taking care of, loved ones, or even ourselves. And If we don't understand the impact that that can have to our overall financial picture, we will find ourselves in a position where we might not even be able to retire. So, having this conversation, doing what I do, sharing what I'm sharing with you today is meant to help you to address the gap, to give you options, to help you figure out how do you create long-term prosperity for yourselves, whether you're on your own or you're in a partnership with someone. Either way, it's so vitally important that we as women have a clear understanding of how money works and how to get it to work for us. So let me give you some statistics around what is happening right now today. And I'm sure I don't have to say this to you that we are living in times of enormous change. We are in a financial crisis like none other that I have seen in my lifetime. And that crisis is at the top and it's trickling all the way down to our own personal finances. Statistically, I can tell you that 63% of Americans today are living paycheck to paycheck. They're trying to figure out, how do I pay these bills every single month? Oftentimes, they're not even able to do it. 85% of those people who are living paycheck to paycheck, they hate their jobs. I see it every single day, but they have no options. It's like my mother's story all over again. 44% of individuals don't even have enough to handle an emergency of $400. Now, I want you to think about that. If you've been to the grocery store in the recent past, you know that $400 is not a lot of money when it comes to trying to feed a family of four. In fact, it's not enough. And most people don't even have enough set aside for that. So what they're relying on is debt, credit card debt. Now, when I'm talking about debt, I am not talking about mortgages or car notes or student loans, all of which are debt. I'm talking simply credit card debt. And 54% of American households today are responsible for more than $887 trillion, billion dollars in credit card debt. And that was in 2022. Now, here we are in 2025, we've crossed over $1 trillion in credit card debt. It's an enormous amount of money for individuals to try and figure out, how do I pay all of that and still provide for my family? We know that more than 48% of American households don't even have enough coverage for their most important asset, which is themselves. They don't have life insurance. They're relying on the insurance from their employer and aren't even aware that they don't even own that. But the big one, the main one, is that 51% of adults right now today, in the year of 2025, have little to nothing set aside for their retirement. This is a huge issue. They're relying on the government, we already know how that goes, or others to help fund their retirement years. So as you're listening to this, I want you to think about, like, which of these statistics align with you and what are you doing about it? Because if we don't address it, it's only going to get worse. So I want to talk to you about what are some of the areas of concern that you should be looking at. And there's 4 areas. There's time, inflation, there's taxes, and then there's risk, losses in the market. And I want to talk a little bit about time. You know, when I talk to people about finances, the biggest thing I hear is, oh, well, I don't know how money works. And typically in a household, and this, you might resonate with this, typically in a household, the father will talk to the son about managing their money and doing all those types of things, but the women are usually left out of the conversation. And so when we're not part of the conversation, we don't understand that it's important to start putting money away for our future as early as possible. The key is to start early. And so I want to give you an example. Here's 2 people. So we have Susan on the left. She's got the glasses, right? Really smart. And she and her friend Mary have been talking about putting money away. At age 25, they both say, okay, great, we're going to put away $100 every month. So Susan gets started immediately. She starts putting away $100 a month, And she does it for 10 years and she has saved $12,000. After the 10 years, she's now 35. She's living a life. She's put a little nest egg aside. Her friend Mary said she was going to start, but then said, well, wait, I'm going to get my promotion. So she waited, she got a promotion. And she said, you know what? I'm getting married. She had her first child and then she bought a house with her husband. Now she's getting started. So at 35, she begins to put away $100 every month. They're both getting an 8% rate of return, but Mary is starting a little bit later. And so as Mary starts later, she realizes she has to make up for lost time. So she says, I'm going to do 3 times of what Susan did, right? And so she does. She ends up putting away $36,000. And her friend put away $12,000. Her friend only invested for 10 years. Mary invested for 30 years. And look at what happens when they both turn 65. With an 8% rate of return, even though Susan put in less money for a shorter period of time, she still ends up with over $200,000 at 65. And well, Mary, she got $150,000. How did that happen? There's something called the time value of money. And in essence, it simply means that the earlier you start, the more opportunity your money has to compound and grow. So let's take a moment and talk a little bit about how does money even grow? I am certain you have all heard of compound interest. The question is, do you know how it works? So compound interest is where your principal is earning interest, and that's earning interest, and that's earning interest. So your money is compounding, it's growing quite quickly. And so when we look at how money grows, where you put your money matters. There's a rule called the rule of 72 that simply says if you divide 72 by the interest rate that you're getting on your investment, you can determine for yourself how long it'll take to double. So let's say you were 29 years old and you put $10,000 in a savings account. And let's say you were getting a 1% rate of return. Well, we know that 72 divided by 1 is 72. So simply stated, it's going to take 72 years for that $10,000 to double. If you started this journey at 29, when you're 101, you'll have $20,000. Now, I know you're probably saying, what? This is ridiculous. We don't have that kind of time to wait. But if you were getting a higher return, maybe 6% or 12%, the same rule applies, except it grows faster. So if you had that $10,000 in a vehicle that was getting a 12% rate of return, your investment would double every 6 years. So by the time you hit 65, that $10,000 is $640,000, and that's a one-time investment. Now, this can work for you or it can work against you. I just showed you how this can benefit you, right? And when it comes to inflation, whatever you're doing to get your money to grow, you need it to be outpacing inflation. So during COVID, we saw inflation rates of 9%. If you were getting 1% in the bank, you were actually losing 8% of your purchasing power. Said a little differently, it simply means that there was 8% less of whatever you would buy, groceries, gasoline, clothes, paying for utilities. You'd have 8% less of your money each year because your money was not keeping up with inflation. And you probably remember this, right? You'd go to the gas station, you go to put gas in, it always cost you $40 to fill your tank. And then all of a sudden with inflation, the same tank, the same kind of gas, all of a sudden it costs you $65. That's inflation. That's where your purchasing power is being eroded away because your money is not growing at the same pace or greater. But let me tell you how this rule can hurt you as well. Remember I talked about credit card debt? You see, the creditors, the people that own the credit cards, the people, the Chases, the credit unions, the TD banks, all of the individuals that hold that debt for you use this same exact rule. So I want you to think about it like this. Let's say you're getting a 4% growth rate on your account. Your money's growing at 4%, but you have a credit card, and that credit card has a 12% rate of return, meaning that, not rate of return, excuse me, your interest rate, right? What you're going to pay them. That means your debt on that credit card, if you don't pay it off, is doubling every 6 years. But the money that's getting 4% in your savings account is taking 18 years to double. So you're probably starting to see why there's such a challenge with people getting to financial independence. Understanding how these things work is vital to be able to make good decisions so that you can get out from underneath the debt and get compound interest to work in your favor. But there's also, how do you get your money to grow? And so when we look at the different options, most times we know of two key things. We know that you can put your money in the bank. Oh, and if you happen to work for a firm where you have access to a retirement plan like a 401k or a 403b, then you can actually leverage that and take advantage of growth in the markets. But there are three key ways that your money can grow. The first one is fixed growth. This is an account that will provide you guarantees. We guarantee in a fixed growth account, you won't lose the money you put in. Well, we like that. But we also guarantee you that it's not going to outpace inflation. You're going to get a very low rate of return. Things like CDs, your savings accounts, they all work like this. Your money is safe, but it's not necessarily going to keep pace with inflation. And I already shared with you what happens when you don't. The other way you can grow your money is in variable accounts. Now, you may have seen this diagram before, but these are the type of accounts that take advantage of the markets. And when I say the markets, I mean the stock market. This is where you're able to invest in things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. And these could be inside of your 401k, your retirement plans, your pensions, could be in a brokerage account or an IRA. But in these variable type of accounts, you must remember that not only do you get an opportunity to take advantage of all the growth in the market, you also have to take advantage of, or not advantage of, but endure, I should say, the losses in the market. You know, right now, today, or in this period of time, we are seeing a significant amount of volatility in the market. When we talk about volatility, this is what I mean, the ups and downs. Now, we always will have that, but not so severe. When you have severe wins and severe losses in short periods of time, it really can do a number on your investments and even on whether or not you can retire. But the third way that you can get your money to grow is in what's called a protected growth account. And in a protected growth account, you have the ability to take advantage of all the gains in the market and protect yourself from losses. So when the market's going down, you don't lose any of your money. So these are three ways that we can get our money to grow. The question is, how is your money working for you? Are you taking advantage of investments that allow you to use the markets when it's doing well, but protect it when there's volatility? So what does all this mean to all of us? As women, you know, I look at us as builders because we are always creating something. We create life. We create, we nurture, we build our families. We create businesses. We are just builders by nature. And knowing that, that also means that we have the ability to be builders when it comes to our finances. We have the investment power. We just need to know how to harness it. We need to know how to gain access to the information that will allow us to make good investment choices for ourselves. You know, statistically, what we know is that when we look at portfolios that have been, you know, created for women, and you know, when you created a portfolio, it's a joint process, right? But portfolios that are led by women that are, this is my portfolio, I'm doing this for my kids' college education or whatever it is. And those that were created by men and they're building it for whatever they're building it for, statistically, those portfolios that are created for and by women outperform those that are created for and by men. There's a number of reasons for that. Women tend to think logically about what they want to do and they think things through a little bit more, whereas men are looking for oftentimes they'll take more risk, not necessarily looking at how can they get better gains while minimizing the risk. And I said it earlier, and this is, this is such a great place to be. And I love this organization and all of the wonderful women here in the Passionistas, because a lot of us have our own businesses. And statistically, we are almost at the 50% point where 50% of businesses are owned by women. We're at 42% right now in the US, but that's only going to increase. So we have the ability and we're building businesses, and we the way we look at the world and the way we approach things from a logical perspective and a nurturing perspective really enables us to really manage our finances to get really great returns. The key is, why aren't we doing it? What is holding us back? I said earlier that there's this financial gap in wealth between men and women. And hopefully you see now some of the things that are critical to understanding what do you need to know to bridge that gap. But it's also, how do you get yourself to the point where you overcome it? Like, we know there are things you need to know, but what can you do to learn those things? To be able to say, I understand how these things work, and now I'm going to do something about it. Because since we don't make as much money as men, for every dollar that a man makes, women make about 84 cents. And I talked earlier about how we find ourselves out of the market more than in the market because of all of the responsibilities that we have as the caregivers and the nurturers of our families. That means we have to work that much harder to make that much money to be able to fund our retirement. Because remember, if our spouse predeceases us, which the probabilities are pretty high, then the only thing that we have that we can live off of is whatever we have generated for ourselves. I shared earlier that, we know that 50% of Americans today do not have enough money or any money set aside for retirement. I have a client, a husband and wife. They've been my client for quite some time, and the husband made most of the money, and the wife was stay at home. She does a little bit of work, but he provided everything. And unfortunately, he predeceased her. Now, he had some money in a retirement plan, and it's okay, but the pension that she thought she was going to get, she didn't, for a couple of reasons. Social Security stopped. She got survivor benefits, but none of it was close to the amount that he was bringing in the household. So her entire lifestyle for her and her children had to shift. She had to shift down to accommodate what she was bringing in now versus where they were before. So, as women who are building families and businesses, it's important for us to understand that we also have to take responsibility for our overall wealth. And the way you do that is by three key things. The first one is getting educated about it and setting some very clear goals. I shared with you, my mom asked me to learn about how money works because she didn't know. And because she didn't know, she had goals, but she couldn't achieve them. She was making decisions and doing things that did not align with the goals that she had, not because she didn't want to, but simply from a lack of knowledge. So the first thing is to get educated. Now, it's interesting to me because I see that people will go to great lengths to get educated by going to social media. Let me just tell you, while social media has a lot of information, a lot of it is suspect. There is a lot of misinformation out there. And just like if you are not well, you would not go to social media to figure out if you needed to get brain surgery or, if you needed to put your arm in a cast, you would go to a doctor who that's what they do. That's what I recommend for you as well. Get that financial education from licensed financial professionals, not financial coaches, They're coaches because they're not licensed to tell you how to do things. They can give you some information, but you really need to be working with someone who can give you the education that you need so you can make informed decisions. And then the last part of that is to take action. I love the acronym ACT because it stands for Action Changes Things. You can get all the education you want. You can sit in seminars. You can listen to this and say, wow, that was powerful. But if you don't do anything, excuse me, if you don't do anything with what you've learned, you have no power. People always say that knowledge is power, but the real statement is applied knowledge is power. Other than that, it's just knowledge. A great example is, kids go to school, they go to college, maybe they get their degree. And how many people do you know where their children or even themselves have gotten their degree in XYZ and it's hanging up on the wall? There's the degree, but they're not doing anything with it. Maybe they're sitting home, I'll use young kids, they're sitting home watching video games. They went and got the knowledge, but they didn't do anything with it. Don't let that be you. And I want to give you options. I want to give you resources that can allow you to get the knowledge necessary for you to not only feel confident, but for you to be able to do things that make a difference for you. So here at The World Changes, we have the #1 financial social education app. I want you to think about Facebook, except for finance. And we have all these courses where you can go in and you can learn about, maybe you're like, hey, does my Social Security get taxed? Well, it could. And there's a course on that. Or maybe how do I fund my retirement? I am a business owner. I pay myself, whether you do a drawdown or you're a 1099, and you're wondering, how do I deal with my retirement? Like if you're not putting into any plan for your retirement, you may not have one. Remember I said that 50% of people have little to nothing set aside for their retirement, and they're relying on the government or Social Security. A lot of those individuals are business owners because they forget that it's now on them. It's their responsibility to put funds away for their retirement. You'll also have access to financial tools. Have you ever said to yourself, hey, I wonder, I have this extra $300 every month. I would love to put it somewhere and have it grow so that later on I have whatever you have. Well, we have those tools in this app. There's calculators to help you figure out, if I had $300 every month and I put in an account earning 8% and I did that for 10 years, how much money would I have? There's a calculator for that. We also have calculators that can help you with real estate. So maybe you have real estate as part of your financial portfolio, or maybe you have a home and you want to pay it off, or you want to buy a home. Well, there's calculators to help you with that, as well as guided advice. And it's a place where we talk about all of the things that are happening in the economy that can have a direct impact on you that you may not be aware of. We all have our own world that we're focused on. Whatever your business is, whatever your family dynamics are, that's what you're focused on. And so many times what's happening in the financial world, you miss it. It kind of like whew, goes over your head, right? Because it's not where your focus is. And so what we do is we provide summaries of what's going on and links so that you can stay up to date on what is exactly happening. So I have here for you a QR code, and if you scan it, there's two things I want you to do. It's going to be a survey. I want to hear from you what stood out to you from what I shared today. And I went over a couple of things. Some of it may be new, and some of it may be things that you never heard of before. I want to know what those are so that I can help you. I can give you the resources so that you can learn more about that. But I also want to make sure that you have access to the TWC Network app. And that by completing the survey, it'll allow me to make sure that you have that access. So one last thing before we button all of this up. I said to you that it's so important for us to stay on top of what's happening. And I put this out under the in the Passionistas Share Anything section. You can find it by doing Q1. If you do Q1 in the search, it'll come up. But next Thursday, I will be hosting a conversation with 3 industry leaders around what the heck is going on. We're going to be talking about the tariffs. We're going to be talking about the layoffs, all of the things that are occurring right now and the immediate impact that it's having, which I think most of us can see. But we're also going to talk about what does that mean for your retirement? What does that mean for your children? There's conversations now around Social Security. Remember, I said 50% of people are relying on Social Security to cover their retirement. Social Security was never meant to do that. In fact, on average, for someone who was making a considerable amount of money, Social Security will only cover about 40% of what their overall monthly salary was. So we're going to have the conversation. And the purpose of this is for you to hear, what do you need to know? The news is talking about what's happening at the macro level, what it's doing to the overall economy, how it's impacting, inflation and the real estate market. And even, you hear the word recession being floated out there, right? Which I think you're going to hear more and more of. All of that is being discussed at that level. Here, we're going to talk about what does that mean to your own economy? Did you know that you have your own personal economy? You are the CEO and the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer for your life and for your family. And this event is going to give you an opportunity to hear what you need to know so that you can take the necessary steps to provide for your family and protect yourself around changes that could impact you. When you register for this is something you do need to pre-register for. Please don't wait until the event to try and get in, because then you won't be able to get in. You RSVP, you just type moneytalks.financial in a URL on the web browser, and it will take you to the registration page. When you register, you will get a link for the Zoom. You'll also get a reminder about an hour before so that you don't miss it. Now, when you're registering, it's going to ask you, how did you hear about it? I want you to put in the Passionista Project, because that's how you hear about it. Passionista Project brings resources to each and every one of you so that you have what you need to be the best version of yourself. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to cover with you. I wanted you to learn more about me, a little bit about what you should know about why what I do has such a profound impact for you, your family, and your business. And I want to be able to stay connected with you. So please connect with me on different social channels. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, because I put a lot of material out there as well about other things that you should know. And the last thing I'm going to say to you is that when you change your finances, you change your world. And that's why we, as the world changers, are committed to ensuring that you have access to resources so that you can have the best life possible for you and your family. I want to thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all around the Passionista Project. Speak soon.